Purely musical level, I'm interested in microtonality, that is, tuning systems that go beyond our regular 12-tone system that's most commonly used today. So the piece that was performed here is in a system called just intonation, so it's tuned according to the natural harmonic series. In terms of extra musical concerns, it's a bit more complicated to explain, I suppose. Has kind of a philosophical basis. I explore the notion of essence and the sort of maybe false belief that there is such a thing as an essence. So I like to use music as an exploration of essence and trying to get down to the core identity of an object, but finding out that that's actually a fiction, and things only exist as constructions of interrelated elements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that in any way connected to, say, for instance, Kant's philosophy that there's no such thing as the thing itself, that we only know? Yeah. I suppose most of my interest in this has to do with Eastern philosophy and particularly Zen Buddhism. Mm-hmm. But I suppose, it's related to that as well. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the title of the piece was L'essence perd son sens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the essence loses
its meaning. Yeah. So it's precisely that. In the piece, there's a sort of figure that comes back in many different forms. So it goes in variations in timbre. And also in speed and register, and the idea is just to show that this object it can go through many transformations without actually being seen as something different. So what does that mean? It means that an object can be transformed in very many different ways, and none of those ways really represents what the thing is in itself. So it sort of represents something that can't be defined.
Yes. Yeah. I think in your comment in the booklet, you said, or at least I read, music is rhythm, but it's not just rhythm. Mm-hmm. Rhythm is part of it, but there's more to it, and you can't. How do you say? Bring music back to just one of those aspects.
Yeah.
Did you find out what music is in composing the piece? Why you were composing it?
No, I mean, basically it's like everything. If you think of a car or something, you can't say exactly what a car is. You can't say a car is its motor or the outside. It is the sum of its parts, but it's not any one of those things. Yeah. So I'm no closer to finding out what exactly music is, other than a series of interrelationships.
Yeah. It was a string trio piece, right?
Yeah.
Why did you choose the string trio?
Well, it wasn't me that chose it. I was asked to write the piece.
Okay.
It's for some friends who had a string trio.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a conscious choice of mine, but. Nonetheless, it's an interesting ensemble to write for.
Is it easier to write for such a small ensemble, or is it more difficult?
It depends on. There are things that are easier and things that are more difficult. So, for instance, orchestration, I suppose it's easier because you're working with similar timbres. But also working with more limited materials can also be more of a challenge than when you have a full array of instruments to choose from.
Yeah. It was just acoustic strings, right? No
electronics.
No electronics or whatever. Do you use electronics in other compositions?
I have, yes. Yeah. I have a piece for violin, live electronics. And I've often used electronics in ways that aren't. You don't necessarily hear electronics, but I use the computer, so I've used stuff like random click tracks generated by a Maxim SP patch and things like that. But I do enjoy working with acoustic instruments. I would say. Yeah.
Is there another way in which your interest in Zen Buddhism is connected to your compositional activity?
No, I would say like my main focus is really about identity, and I think we often think of ourselves as as having a core to our being that we define ourselves as, and I like to think of that as kind of false, and that we really are just a construction of interrelated elements.
Yeah.
And I think this is something can be quite scary, but also something that makes us free, because in that sense you can be what you want to be, really. Yeah.
Okay, so what it means is there is no such thing as this is really me, who I am.
Yeah.
There's
exactly,
just a construction or a or an observation. Or Okay. I think you also play a totally different kind of music in Magic Laser, right?
Yes,
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
It's a band
it's a band. It's a trio of electronic music. So we have synthesizers and guitar and bass, and this is just something. I have two of my very good friends in Montreal that decided to start a band a few years ago, and we've been playing around Montreal. We haven't made it outside of Montreal yet.
It's hard.
But it is hard. Yeah.
Is there any connection between playing in a band and composing for string trio?
No, I wouldn't say so. It's something quite different, I would say. In a band context, you're working with two other members. We compose all the music together and record. We don't notate anything. It's all we record loops and things, or we just jam. And also the style is completely different. So, I mean, if there are connections to be made, I don't really see them myself.
There's no, say, but is there a connection through Zen Buddhism, or through your interest in identity? Or is the band totally about the sound? Or
I suppose there is a connection personally, in the sense that I don't really define myself as a composer of instrumental classical music. So it is that, in that sense, in that I don't necessarily identify myself as such. But in terms of the music that Magic Laser produces, I don't really see the connection. Certainly, my band members aren't really concerned with these things. So,
what's your main influence apart from Zen Buddhism? Are there any, composers or bands or musicians?
Yeah, well, certainly there's many microtonal composers that have influenced me. Harry Partch is American composer. It was my sort of introduction to the world of microtonality. Georg Friedrich Haas, who's still working today, is a very big influence.
And on the band side?
On the band side, many different influences. Yellow Magic Orchestra, Japanese band, has a huge influence. Kraftwerk, obviously. Can't be an electronic band, I think, without having
their influence.
Yeah, without their influence.
Sort of way. That's cool.
Yeah. So it seems very different to me. Two different sides, but
still, there's one person doing both these things.
Which
is Beavan Flanagan. There must be something.
Maybe somewhere, obviously.
Maybe just one more thing. I think you did also a piece last night during the Sleep Well concert.
Yes, I did.
Tell me about that. Did everybody sleep well?
They did, I think.
Okay.
They seemed to be sleeping.
What piece was played?
It was just it wasn't an improvisation, really. I was just my laptop, and I had some sounds prepared. Basically, I played back some Bach preludes and fugues in MIDI files, and I altered them and took out all of the black notes on the keyboard, so you would only have white notes. So it created this kind of serene, very little tension music, which I play back on a synthesizer, and I had a few other sounds. It was very quiet and subdued, and
Was it directed to just being quiet, or was there a specific idea behind what you did?
No, because obviously the purpose was to make people fall asleep. So I didn't want to make anything that would have anything too interesting really,
Okay.
because maybe that would make people want to stay up and listen instead.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to create something that was, you know,
Yeah,
in the background. Yeah.
The interesting thing about Bach, of course, is that he wrote his Goldberg variation.
Yeah. Well, that was my starting point for that.
Yeah. For someone who couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And then now we have a wonderful, definitely absurdly interesting, beautiful piece of music.
Yeah.
With which it is very hard to fall asleep. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Bevan, thank you so much for your comments.
This is my pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Great.
And lots of success.
Thanks a lot.